making sure everything is recording and live streaming so that you will have this information. All right, done. That. Okay, so for those of you, most of you are aware, I'm working on David Adjaye's Sunken House. And what I did initially was I went and found photographs of the sunken house to get a better idea of what it looked like on the exterior. The plans give you a certain amount of information, and then of course you have your elevations and sections, why you get a set of drawings so that you can fully understand the appearance of the building as well as how the building is assembled together. So this is what the sunken house looks like on the exterior. So what I would recommend for all of you to do is, if you are trying to do any, lifelike renderings of your particular building, then to go in and find photographs of your building. So that's kind of step one for determining what your elevations are going to look like. So all of this was really helpful because I was able to take materials from these particular images and essentially impose them on my building in Photoshop. Another thing that you want to take into consideration is the style of elevation that you want to render. And we talked a little bit about this. One of the things that I like to do for my studio classes, as well as any other project that I'm working on, is to go on Pinterest. And for those of you who don't have a Pinterest account, I feel like it's a really good way to keep up with what different people are doing in the design field. And even if it's not just architecture design, it could be fashion, it could be interiors, it could be graphic design, whatever. But I have a board because in Pinterest you can set up different boards for those of you who aren't familiar. And in it, I just throw all types of images of architectural models, analysis, renderings, presentations, etc., so that I can show them to my class, so I get an idea of what their different options are. So today, and I hope all of you can see what I'm doing, and a lot of these are student renderings that students did. So you can see that this particular Photoshop is a section and elevation combination. And they started off with this line drawing, which you would develop in AutoCAD or Revit. And then they brought it into Photoshop to add in the sky, trees, a scaled figure, shadows, lighting, etc. So we are going to do the same, or I'm going to show you how the same, and then there's a night view. I'm going to show you how to do the same with this particular project, which is the Sunken House by David Adjaye. But I'm suggesting that you go on Pinterest simply so that you can check out different types of rendering styles. Because there are all different ways to render. You might just add some texture to the interior and some washes. And what they've done is added in like photorealistic trees and faded them into the background. And literally, and then there's some more like abstract let's see. This is not what I want. There's some different like abstract ways that people just put materials in trees in, more scaled figures, but it's very muted. It doesn't necessarily look photorealistic, but it does give you an idea of the actual materials that are used in the building, the cut throughs, of course, where lighting is coming in, and then, you know, scale figures so that you understand the building heights. So it doesn't necessarily have to be photorealistic, is what I'm getting across. You can add texture and color to your different renderings without it being, you know, looking a certain way. It really does kind of depend on your presentation style. And so that's one of the things I want you guys to experiment with. This is another that I really like. Experiment with different types of presentation styles to get an idea of how you want your building to come together. And it doesn't necessarily look like a photo itself, but it gives you some idea of how the space is used. You can see the green roof at the top, people walking on it. There's some image silhouettes as well as actual people in here. Some greenery. But you see all of this is really layered together in Photoshop. Got some birds in the sky, that type of thing. It almost looks like a painting. So I'm going to show you something that's, for me, this is what I lean towards with my particular type of presentation style. A lot of people will try to develop a elevation in Lumion or what do you call it? Revit or Enscape, but it really doesn't give you an actual elevation. An elevation is really flat on, you don't see any projected depth. So there's no perspective elements in it. So there's no perspective lines. What you will typically get out of a rendering or rendered elevation in like Lumion or Enscape is that it will have projected depth in there, and that's not a true elevation. That would be considered a type of perspective. So you want to be very careful about exporting images out of three-dimensional programs and assuming that it's an elevation. It's not. An elevation is when you take lines from a plan view and project them straight up and there's no depth. You might see shadows and you'll see lighting, but there shouldn't be any three-dimensional elements in it, if that makes any sense. I know it's kind of hard to differentiate when you're looking at a rendering, but when you are working in 3D, of course, you will see different axes, X, Y, Z axis, depending on how things are oriented, or you'll see different points of perspective, be it a 1 point or a 2 point perspective. This does not give you that. It does not draw your eye to a center point and allow for information to kind of pop off of a page. A rendering is just supposed to give you an idea of the materials, light, shade, shadow, and you can do that in elevation by projecting lines up. You can't do that in a perspective by just looking at it straight on, because it still gives you too much information to make it a true elevation, if that makes any sense. All right, so I just wanted to show y'all that. So if you're into Pinterest, I would suggest going on here, and a lot of times, can y'all still see my screen? I'm looking at the Pinterest search menu. A lot of times what I'll do is literally just go in here and type in architecture renderings. And these are all types of renderings that may come up. And you see how this particular rendering It's not photorealistic, it's very artistic. I had one student, Joshua Gordon, who would do renderings very similar to this. So your renderings can be very stylized and very reflective of you and your kind of personal taste. So this kind of looks more like a painting, more watercolory. It's a little more whimsical based on the people that are in here. It's not necessarily photos of people, which is what we're going to put together. But I encourage you to play around with it and look at different styles and try to imitate it. What I'm going to do is just kind of show you the techniques that you can layer together to get there. Okay, anybody have any questions? All right, so I'm going back to Adobe Photoshop, and I think I saved David Adjaye's elevations in here, but just in case I did not. Going back to this sunken house image, save image as, and again, remember we want to save it out as a PNG or a JPEG file. And I'm just doing, I want to save it as elevation sunken house. Okay. And then another thing I'm going to do before I start actually rendering this, I want to collect some more information. So I'm going to go to Google. And just as we did for our plans, can y'all see my screen? It should be on the Google search bar thing.
Yeah, we see.
Okay, cool. All right, so just like we did with our floor plans, I'm going to be looking for trees that I can scale, people that I can scale, maybe some outdoor furnishings. We could put all types of things in this rendering. It just is a matter of what you are interested in incorporating. So I'm going to look at people 2D search. I'm going to go to images, right? So we got all types of people here doing things in different sizes. Got outlines of people, got people walking, what have you. You just want to make sure that it's a two-dimensional image, meaning it's flat on. Let me see. And sometimes you can actually use pictures of your friends. I know that in 4th year, every once in a while, you'll see an image of one of their classmates in their renderings. So I like this. All right. Save image as, and if you can, what helps to make your search even more succinct is you can type in the type of people that you want, like if you're looking for a particular race of people, depending on the demographic that you're serving. Or if you're looking for children, you can put that in. Or you can also put in just like silhouettes. So just kind of decide what it is that you want to do in terms of imagery. And you can do the same thing for furniture, or you could say outdoor furniture for the sake of this purpose. This is all going into my folder. You want to be very careful about the view of the outdoor furniture that you're picking. Make sure that it's two-dimensional in nature. It can have some depth to it, but depending on the, like this is a pretty good image. This yellow chair that I'm looking at. Maybe we can find somebody seated to put in this chair. I think this is really outdoorsy, but y'all get the idea. So whenever you're doing 2D furnishings, I was saying you want to make sure that it's either facing a side or a front. You want to be very careful about things that are skewed at perspective, just because if you decide to put people in there, then you have to manipulate the people as well. Not that it can't be done, it's just something that you want to, you know, take into consideration as you are putting these different images together. I actually preferred this. And then last but not least, we can do trees. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on chairs right now. Anyway, let's go back to trees, and we want to do 2D trees. They can be high resolution, PNG, whatever you're looking for specifically. And of course, you'll get a number of choices depending on your rendering style. You can pick in that way. You can also do like a bunch of trees, like a forest or whatever. Grove of trees, if you will. It's not what I wanted, but okay. A heavier wooded area than what I'm looking for, but you get the idea. Like you can have a bunch of trees to put in the background. My house is in an urban setting, so there's not a lot of treescape, but that's something that you consider. And also, you can do, like, for instance, if you want to do a sunset or a certain time of day, you can choose your sky based on the different type of rendering that you are putting together. So I'm going to go with this because it's already got some power lines in it. This is a PNG file, so that's good. And I might pick one more just in case. It doesn't look right once I get it in there. All right, so we want to go about choosing all of these different elements prior to, and you can change up the style based on your preferences. No, I don't want to use it if you're going to give me these many problems. So based off of your preferences, you can pick what you're looking for, but based off your style, you can pick what you're looking for. So just think of it as digital art. It's a good one. All right, cool. So we got a couple of different options here for skies and all of that good stuff. Now we're going back to our Photoshop screen. And we want to, let me see, where am I at? Am I in documents or desktop? The professor has way too many things on her desktop. So we want our line drawing. And of course, this line drawing will be different coming out of, what do you call it? You know what I forgot to put in there? A carve, but we could go back and do that later. Anyway, it's going to be a lot different coming out of AutoCAD. And when you guys are ready, I will show you how to take your drawings out of AutoCAD and convert them into like a monochrome black and white image like this, and then import them into Photoshop so that you can edit them. So perhaps we'll go over that Friday. All right, so I'm creating a new layer behind this layer because I unlocked it and I want a solid background layer. And on this solid background layer, I'm going to make it white. I'm going to rename this layer background. Right now, my line drawing is layer 0. Wait. Okay. And if you want, you can lock this, but it's really not necessary right now. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is begin with the background image, just because. Yeah, I'm gonna start with the background image, putting in that sky background that I picked out. So image, file, I'm going to go to open, and I'm going to choose this sunset back here. And then I'm going to take just the area out of the sunset that I want, which is this kind of upper portion. And I use my rectangular selection tool. I'm hitting edit, copy, edit, paste. So now you see this on top. What we're actually going to do is move layer 0 in front of this. Come on, layer 0. Which is where my elevation drawings is, the actual line drawing. So I'm going to rename this elevation line drawing. And depending on, you know, kind of the way you work, you might put this together in different ways. This is just kind of my systematic way of going about things. While I'm in this layer, I'm going to take my polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to go around the edge of my elevation line drawing, like around the perimeter of my building, and start cutting out some of this white space. And so I've got my selection tool here. Why is it acting all funky? I'm gonna hold down my shift key so that it's choosing straight lines. I'm just clicking around. Hello. Thank you. You can leave all that right there. Thank you so much. And I'm just going around the perimeter of my building. I might decide to switch it up later. But the reason why I didn't go in and do like a whole magic wand tool is because it's going to start cutting out stuff that I didn't want cut out right now. It's going to get rid of part of my tree as well. Dang it. Probably better to start from the edge of the building rather than go around the edge of the picture first. Takes a little bit of patience. It's a lot easier if you have a mouse, but I'm using my computer mouse right now. Come back to that connected line. All right, and then what I'm going to do is just backspace this out. So you see my sunset in the background. It's not scaled properly to fit in this image. So I'm going to go back to layer 1, which is my sunset. I'm going to rename it sunset. And then I'm going to use my rectangular selection tool. I'm going to right click on it and hit free transform. And then you see these toggles come up. And I'm just going to stretch kind of my background so that it does what I want it to do. And it may not necessarily be that I'm going to use this. Not sure if I like it, to be quite honest with you. I might change it later, but for the sake of right now, I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so now I've got my background in there. The next element that I'm going to choose is kind of the color for my ground plane. Now you see that this is kind of an elevation / section cut because there's a basement garage portion in this building. I'm going to select, I'm going to go back to my elevation line drawing, and I'm going to try and just select this area down here. I'm going to hold on my, no, I'm going to leave that for now. So this is the area of the drawing that's kind of being cut through. There's an exterior wall over here, which is this element that you see sticking up out of the ground. And then this, this actual section line that shows the concrete, I'm going to come back and make that another color. But what I'm going to do is actually, now I've had this selected, I'm going to right click and layer via copy. And I'm going to label this in my layer tools, ground plane. All right, now I'm going back to this. I'm going to decide on a color for my ground plane. And this doesn't necessarily have to be a solid color. This can be a gradient or a wash, depending on the style of rendering that you're doing. And this is why I said I'm not too fond of this background right now, because now my image is getting pretty dark. But we can always go back and change that. And now I'm going to go back to my elevation line drawing and pick out this kind of wall down here, this basement wall that's in concrete. I'm not even sure that this wall should be the same as my ground plane. I feel like that should be the material that is built in, but gonna come back to that. And so this basement wall, I'm gonna go in with my, let me see if it'll work with my magic wand tool. I'm gonna go in with my magic wand tool, and it did. I'm gonna do the same thing, layer via copy. And then I'm going to rename that basement wall. I should have actually added this additional portion to that section cut through, but we can always come back and fix that later. So I'm on my basement wall layer. I just want, let me deselect for a second. And that just requires right clicking on your screen and hitting deselect. I'm going to select that area again, and I'm going to fill it in with this kind of gray tone, this lighter gray tone. All right. So the more I'm looking at this, the less and less I'm liking this sunset background, which is why I said go in and choose multiple options. So I'm actually going to change that out later. But for the time being, I want to get some materials on my building. Excuse me. And I also want to get a scaled person in here. So I'm going to my elevation line drawing, and I'm going to select the areas, and I'm doing all layer via copies just in case I make a mistake that I don't like when I'm filling in materials. Then I can easily go back and adjust it without having to bring in a new version of the line drawing. So if I copy all the layers instead of cutting them, then that base image stays intact. All right, for the time being, I'm going to turn the sunset off because it's actually annoying me. But that's just me and my stuff. So I'm back on the elevation line drawing layer. I'm going to go in with my polygonal lasso tool and try my best to just select the area of the house that I'm going to fill in with the actual housing material. Now you can do all types of stuff with this. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, again, a photorealistic interpretation of the elevation. So I'm gonna layer via copy again, and I'm gonna show you exactly what I mean. So it could be that you go to this layer, which is now layer 1, and I'm gonna call this elevation material. It could be, since the sunken house is brown, I can pick a brown tone and just do a wash over it. And I can fill this area in with my paint bucket tool. Wait. Edit, undo. Before you fill anything, make sure that you have the area that you're looking to select it, and that you're on the correct layer. So those are two important things. All right. So I could go in and just say, all right, I'm gonna fill this. I want it all brown. You know what? That's what I'm doing wrong. I could do a new layer. And I can fill this entire layer brown. I'm gonna label this layer actually wash, like a color wash. And instead of doing actual materials, I'm going to simply change the opacity of this new layer so that it's just a color wash over the face of the building. And then I can also hit multiply. I'm not really sure what the difference between multiply and changing the opacity is, but it does a thing. That's all I got for you. All right, so then I'm going to go in and I'm still in the wash layer. And I'm going to start deleting the areas where there are windows. And if I want, since I'm selecting things in the same opacity as this layer here, I can go in and choose like an icy blue for my windows. And I can start filling in those areas that I deleted with an icy blue, and it'll be in the same opacity as it'll be in the same opacity as the rest of the building. And so now I'm just doing my, you know, kind of color tones. And then I want to make sure that I get this little bit down here as well. So this is just an option of a style of rendering that you could choose. So there's another thing I didn't point out to you guys. A lot of times you'll see me go back into the actual image and select the color out of there. What you can do instead of doing that is you can go up here in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. There's an element that's called swatches. And every single color that you use in your rendering is up here. So you could literally just take your teardropper and hit that, and that will be the color that's in the foreground now. And because I'm still in this wash layer and my layer opacity is only at 38% and I'm still in the multiply function, everything that I do in this layer is going to be the same here. Okay, and that could literally be the extent of what I want to do in terms of conveying materials in this particular rendering. It could be that that's just the style that I'm going for. We could do some other things to the staircase to make it stand out a little more so that it reads as though it's more forward. But that will require another layer. So I can do layer, new layer, and I can make that stair or outdoor stair. And I can go in, choose that particular element with one of my selection tools. I'm going to use the polygonal lasso. And since I already have that, the color that I want to use selected, I can go in, fill that in, change the opacity to something above 38%. so that it reads as the stairs are jutting out forward. Like somebody's actually going to be able to walk up them. And zoom out. And that's what I have. Now, previously, what did I do? I said elevation material. So that could be the extent of your rendering. Like this could be your rendering style. Like if you just want to add color washes to surfaces of buildings prior to bringing in people and all that other stuff, that could be it for you, you know, showing what your materials look like. And that would be totally fine, right? It really does depend on the type of style that you want to convey. But what you can also do is I can turn off this wash. That's why I put it on a separate layer, because I wanted to show you how to do different things. And I can go back to elevation material. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this portion with these brown tones in here because that was an accident. And similar to what we did with the floor plan when we selected a material and made the material a fill so that we could use that as the surface of a floor, so it would actually look like a wood floor. That's what we're going to do on the exterior of this building. So I'm going to select the exterior. Let me see, how do I want to do this? This is why it's important for you to go in and collect images of your building. I thought I had them in this file. Say arc 211, 211, 211. Presentation. All right, so I did the same house last semester. That's why I have multiple files of the same thing. So here's the facade of this actually might be a rendering. I can't remember, but this is the material of the exterior facade of the actual sunken house. So I can zoom in on this one, or I can go to the interwebs and look up the sunken house. And choose an image that gives you a close-up version of the actual material. But you want to make sure, there we go. This is a good one. Choose an image that gives you a close-up of the material, but you want to make sure that the image is close enough and like straight on, like flat on, not a perspective shot, so that you can apply it to the face of your building without it looking off. Come on, I just seen you. Was this it? This might have been it. This is a perspective, but this is not the one that I want. Why are people calling me and I'm in class? It's the most annoying thing in the world. All right, so I'm going to save out this image over here. And I'm going to call that sunken house exterior. Save. I'm gonna go back to Photoshop, excuse me. I'm gonna open that material that I saved. Okay, so this is the texture that I'm going to use for, you know what I'm trying to say. This is the texture that I'm going to use to create the materials on the facade of my building. So I'm going to go to edit, define pattern. Wait, cancel. I just want to make sure that I select just a portion of the material. So I'm going to do edit, copy. I'm going to open a new file because I don't want, if I just define the pattern with that particular image, then it'll repeat the entire image as a pattern. And I just want the wood on the face of the building, not the entire image. So now that's my pattern, right? So I'm going to go to edit and I just copy paste it. I use the image, it was already in the clipboard, and it'll give you the opportunity to select the same size as the clipboard piece that you took a selection of. So I'm going to define pattern, and I'm going to say sunken house wood panel. Professor cannot spell still. Nothing has changed. Hit OK. I'm going to go back to my elevation drawing. I've got this area selected. I'm going to go to edit, fill. I'm going to hit OK. And that is the fill pattern that's going to repeat on the face of my building. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
How do you take out those cuts? You see those cuts? Get those?
You said I'm going to take.
No, how? Oh, okay.
Am I going to take out the cuts?
No, I'm saying like, how do you do it?
Oh, okay.
See how it's like dark on the top and then it gets like lighter. Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the opacity. Oh, you're talking about how it fades in and out. That will depend on how big a portion of the tile, because it repeats itself like a tile pattern. So that depends on how big a portion of the material you take, as well as where you take the image from. It just literally repeats itself. So if you get a big enough swatch of the particular material, then it might not come up with that same like faded in and out situation. I hope that answered your question. I feel like it wasn't very helpful.
No, I get you.
Okay. So another thing you can do, and all I did was I changed the opacity of that layer that the material came in on, is you can play with the opacity of it. I always encourage people to multiply, because for some reason that makes it look more realistic. But I feel like if it does this fading in and out, it's okay. And then you can go back in to the door area and refill it if you want. But the way, if you look at the sunken house, the way that it is the way that the door is, you really can't distinguish the door from the rest of the surface of the building. Like it all looks like one solid plane. So I'm just going to do another fill here. And oh, you know what? So when I go to, and this hopefully this will answer your question better. When I go to edit and fill, you see down here, when it has, it's like custom pattern and it says brick fill. You can script it to do like symmetry fill, spiral, random fill. Like you can change the way that it fills in. I just always do a brick fill, but you can try symmetry fill or whatever, but you just gotta, when you go to fill in your pattern, you click on script and then you can change up the way that your pattern fills in that particular space. So I would play with it. I think that was either Andrea or Morgan that asked me that question.
Yeah, it was Andrea.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna stop here for today. And so this is what will happen if you do a symmetry fill. That's how your pattern will come in. So you wanna go in and play with it, see if you can adjust it to do something that you wanted to do. What did I just do? But it has different options. I would just go in and see if it'll give you something. I'm gonna check and see if there's a way that I can change the ratio of the brick pattern fill so that you don't get that fade in and out. And I'll get back to you about that on Friday. But for now, we're going to stop here. We're going to save out our file. It's a Photoshop file that said that all of our layers are active. And then we'll come back to this on Friday and we'll add trees and people and sky and all the other things. But again, you have the option of doing just a very simple wash or trying to fill it with an elevation material. We're doing a combination of the two. So this would be a combination of the two where your windows are washed and your materials are, so that kind of layering effect gives it more depth. And then when we add our trees and things in, it'll look even better to read, for lack of a better word. Okay. I hope this was helpful, y'all. If you can, let's get everything drawn up in AutoCAD. And if you have like a clear image of your elevation and you did your plans in AutoCAD, then that's fine. Like I'm not so stringent on you that everything has to be exactly like you have to go through this process, this process, this process. My idea is that you practice so you can get the hang of it so that when you're bringing in your own drawings, then you can start going in and playing with it in Photoshop. Like hardline it in AutoCAD and then play with it in Photoshop. And we'll continue the cycle. Okay? So we'll talk again on Friday. Please come with any questions you may have. And if you have the opportunity to try this out, I'll send you the link to the recording for this class.
Can I show you my, can I share my screen and show you what I have so far?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is mine here.
So this is coming together really well, Tara.
Let me zoom in.
It looks really good. I feel like there's just maybe a few walls that you're missing on this. You can't see my cursor on this first floor plan, but I think you should be ready to take this into Photoshop.
I didn't know what was really going on right here.
In this area.
Yeah.
It might be a specific like bookcase or something.
Maybe so.
Make sure you put the wall thickness in your studio.
So this must be like a window here.
Yeah, that's a window, and then right next to it, that right there, that's an actual wall. So we want to make sure we bring that in.
And this is the second floor. With the doors, they look different on each one. Like for the first one, this is the door, but then over here they have the door swing.
Yeah. So depending on what type of door they incorporated in that space, it might have been a pivoting door or a bifold door or a door that opens in and out or a pocket door. So depending on the space, they might have selected different doors. So
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay.
But it looks good thus far. I would just finish up those last couple of things, and on Friday, I'll show you how to take it out of AutoCAD or import it into Photoshop so that you can start rendering.
Okay.
But once you finish that up, what I would do is start putting together a folder of like your materials in Google of the different types of tile and floor patterns and stuff that you want to use so that you have that all ready to go.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Tyra. Did anyone else want to show me the things before we leave? All right. So I look forward to seeing all of you on Friday. Please, if y'all have any questions about technology issues in terms of downloading your stuff, send me an email and I can forward it to Mr. Webster if y'all don't have his direct contact information. Okay? Y'all enjoy the rest of your day.